Welcome to On the Road to Mobility with your host, Dave John.
Hi there. Welcome back to On the Road to Mobility. I'm your host, Dave John, and I'm glad you could join us today. As you know, this is a podcast dedicated to helping solve the problems in getting from here to there for those who have mobility limitations or challenges. Now, today we're going to talk about the issues faced by seniors with a mobility challenge and their families who support them. So right now, there are over 65 million Americans over the age of 65. And in the next 30 years, that number is expected to skyrocket to 90 million. And as you could probably imagine, a larger percentage of the older population faces more challenges with mobility than any other age range. Now, I can relate to this section of the population as I am rapidly approaching membership and can attest to how much more difficult day-to-day tasks can be. Now, the mobility issues and solutions are also dependent on an individual's living arrangements. An elderly person living alone at home, an elderly person living with an elderly disabled spouse at home, or an elderly person living with a family caregiver. Now, each of these has some unique challenges and potential solutions. Our independence is something we fiercely guard in our society. And one of the most difficult decisions a family or an individual can make is, should I move, or should we move mom or dad into assisted living? Now, man, that's a tough question, and there is no easy answer. You have to decide when and if that is appropriate for you and your family. But if you want to stay at home, there are options that can make that choice easier and safer. When someone lives alone and has mobility challenges, their independence can be threatened. Simple things like equilibrium issues can make walking or showering or even getting up from a chair less safe. And since falls are the number one reason for fatal injuries at ERs for older folks, protecting your stability is critical. Like grab bars in the bathroom, including next to the commode, are a simple and inexpensive way to help stability. A bath chair for the shower is available, including one that you sit on outside the tub and it rolls in over the edge on rails to get in. And in the living room, stand-up chairs are great. They use an electric motor to get from a comfy seating position and then tilt up to assist standing. And for walking around the house for someone with a little weaker stability, a walker is a perfect safety aid. There's a lot more equipment and aids like these to help make your home safer. And if your home doesn't feel as safe and convenient as you would like, I encourage you to seek the assistance of a mobility consultant or occupational therapist for ideas on feeling good in your castle again. Now, as a reminder, as always, if you do not find the information or assistance you were looking for in this segment, you are welcome to contact Vehicle Accessibility Consultants or me directly. I'll give you the contact information at the end of this segment. Okay, so back to our topic for today. A critical piece of retaining independence as we age is transportation. And getting out to the grocery store or the doctor is usually a must, and an occasional dinner out or a movie improves our overall quality of life. Now, transportation solutions are available in many areas that can assist with getting you around if your mobility is limited. There is, of course, scheduled transportation solutions such as buses and trains, and all of these are required to be accessible for limited mobility and wheelchairs. And many cities provide scheduled senior and wheelchair shuttle services that can be requested ahead of time for desired outings. And check with your local transportation administration and they'll be happy to help you with available services. Private transportation companies are also a good option to get around. Non-emergency medical transport companies can get you to medical appointments, etc., and some medical insurance does help cover the cost. And in larger metro areas, taxi companies with 10 or more vehicles are required to have accessible vans in their fleet. And even Uber and Lyft are starting to address this need. This private transportation option tends to be a little more convenient than buses or shuttles, but also a little pricey, depending on how frequently you use them. Of course, the most flexible transportation option is your own vehicle, and much can be done to help make your car easy and safe for you. At the upper end of the spectrum is a wheelchair-accessible van like a Ford Transit with a lift, or a Dodge Grand Caravan with a lowered floor and a ramp to roll in. They provide very easy access and a safe mode to transport a person while staying in their wheelchair. But wheelchair-accessible vehicles are not the only option. For folks who have trouble getting into and out of a vehicle because it may be too high, like a truck or SUV, a turning automotive-style seat, or TAS for short, is a great option. A TAS is a power seat that turns and faces the vehicle door and then extends and lowers down. You sit on the seat outside where it is comfortable to get on, and it picks you up and turns to put you in a comfortable and safe position to travel, and integrates the vehicle safety systems like seatbelts, of course. No risk of falling when trying to access that high cab. These seats work in a wide variety of vehicles, so you may be able to keep your current truck or SUV. For independent people who want to drive, you can use all of the previous personal car options and pair them with adaptive driving controls. Now, these options can include hand-operated controls for the gas and brake, left foot accelerators, which I talked about in a previous segment, even simple crossover devices to switch the turn indicator stem or the shifter on column-mounted systems to the other side of the column. If you have a weakness in one side, say due to a stroke, these can be very important and inexpensive safety devices. Okay, so in the few minutes I have during this segment, I can't cover every option and its advantages. But the point for today is there are many ways to make your personal transportation safe and convenient. I will cover many of these options individually in future podcasts, so check back. If you want to explore your individual options, I suggest contacting a mobility consultant and have an evaluation done. By the way, that should be free. All right, here comes my favorite part again, our special guest. And today we have someone I'm very excited about. I met Mateen a few years ago when she was a client at my mobility dealership, and she was such a nice person over time, we just became friends. She's also a marriage and family therapist, and her professional experience gives her a unique perspective on facing challenge. Please welcome my friend, Mateen. Mateen, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Dave.
Well, I'm sure glad you could join us today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So, Mateen, I know you have an absolutely wonderful story, and I was hoping that one of the first things you could do is share with our podcast listeners some of of your story, your personal story. Would you do that for us?
Sure. Okay, so yes, I'm Iranian American. I was born and raised in Iran. I left Iran right after high school, and I lived in Germany for 6 years after that, and then I immigrated to U.S. So I've been in U.S. for many years, and this is my home now.
We're glad you're
Well,
here, by the way.
thank you. Thank you. And professionally, I'm a marriage and family therapist. I'm a mental health worker, work with children, families, and individuals.
Now, Mateen, can you share a little bit about your personal, mobility and your disability situation?
Sure. I was about 11 months when I had polio. And so this happened in Iran. And as a result of it, I cannot walk. I have good upper body strength, but I use a wheelchair for mobility. I have vans that they have lifts, so that's how I drive and get around. And so, yeah, that's my mobility situation.
How was it growing up in Iran with the disability, and how did your family interact with that?
Well, when I got polio, the vaccination was already there, I think, 8 years. I was from a small town, and I guess people weren't educated about it. And it wasn't really my parents' fault. It wasn't neglect or anything like that.
Right.
It's just they were not aware, and the doctor didn't recommend it. So it was a huge challenge for them suddenly having a child. I was born healthy, and I suddenly having a child who had to live with disability. I'm sure it was very stressful for my parents especially, and it also affected my siblings because most of my parents' attention had to be on me, and I was the youngest child. The biggest challenge was, and the main reason that I left my country of origin was because of lack of accommodations. We were well off, we had a very comfortable life, but I could not live an independent life in Iran because of lack of or very limited accommodations for people who use wheelchair as a mobility. And as I was growing up, it was always the plan. It is something that my father planned for me that I need to leave Iran and live somewhere where I can be independent and have the most quote unquote normal life that I can have. So I was always prepared that one day, once I graduate from high school, I'm going to leave. And I guess the plan was first for me to move to England, but that plan changed. And anyway, long story, I ended up in U.S.
You help people every day who face many different kinds of challenges. Is there
Mm-hmm.
something you think is important to successfully overcoming them?
I think this might sound cliche, but it's just about not giving up and looking at your glass half full and instead of focusing on what you don't have or what you cannot do, focusing on what is it you can do and what you have. Because most likely there are a lot more things that you can do than you cannot. And I think also having support of others, that's a big factor. My father was my biggest cheerleader. And since I was growing up, he always verbalized to me how proud he was of me and how smart I was and how I could be anything that I wanted to be. So I think that plays a huge factor, having people, especially for me, because I had a disability since I was a child, since I know myself. So growing up with that person who believed in me, that helped a lot. He always used the expression, "When there is a will, there is a way," and I lived by that. That was my light to follow, and just not giving up. And I had lots of failures. I just got up, dusted myself off, and started all over again.
I've known you for several years now. Everybody knows that you were a client and have now become a friend. No, I know we've worked together to create mobility for you in transportation.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that a little bit? How important is that for you to be able to have that independence in your transportation?
Mm-hmm. Well, my independence is extremely important for me. This is my thing. I really hate relying on other people. I have to rely on other people for something, but I'm pretty independent because I always wanted to be. So, of course, having the transportation, the mobility, and the accommodation that I have in my vans, that plays a huge factor. It helps me to go where I need to go. It helps me to go to socialize more. It helps me to get to work every day, not having to worry about getting a ride or calling someone to take me somewhere. And I travel where I want to, so I can basically live without thinking that I have a disability. It allows me to do those things.
That has to be quite a big deal.
It is a very big deal. I cannot imagine not having that.
What is the one thing you would like to share with others who face similar challenges that you may have learned or come to understand during your journey through the places you've been?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't see myself as an expert in disability in general, but I'm expert in my disability. So I guess one thing that is really, I would think that is would help anyone is just really, as I said earlier, just really focusing on what is it you can do, and having a passion, having a goal, finding something that you get excited about every day, something that brings meaning to your life. It could be anything. Could be even having a dog that gives you a reason to wake up in the morning and take him out for a walk or for a stroll. I think that's very important, and just really recognizing your own strengths, what you have overcome in the past, what the struggles you have overcome in the past can help you right now overcome whatever is going on right now.
Well, I think that is powerful advice, to be sure. Well, I'm afraid our time has just about run out. Mateen, I really want to thank you for joining us on the podcast today. My favorite section of every segment is getting a chance to talk with people who I have a great deal of respect for. Thank you for sharing your story and your insights with us. And again, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Dave.
You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
So let's jump into today's product corner. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about stair chairs. Now, stair chairs are powered devices that help mobility or stability challenged people navigate a staircase. You sit in a seat at the top or bottom of the stairs, push a switch on the unit, and it powers you up or down a rail on the side of the stairs. Many people find that stairs are the most difficult part of getting around the house on a daily basis, and falls while on the stairs account for a huge percentage of falls causing injury in the home. Stair chairs nearly eliminate the risks to seniors and mobility challenged individuals associated with the stairs. Now, the rider still needs to have good upper body stability to stay safely on the seat while riding up or down. These units can be installed on straight or curved staircases and even can be designed for custom stairs with multiple flights and landings. They are also available for outside applications if the stairs are exposed to the elements. Over the years, one of the common conversations I would have with my customers revolved around the thought that they had to sell the 2-story home they had lived in for many years, raised children, welcomed grandkids, etc., because it was a 2-story home and they could no longer go up and down the stairs. Of course, the decision to sell a home often involves much more than whether the stairs are doable or not, but that can be a major factor. Even though installing a stair chair can sometimes have a significant price tag, it may well be far less than selling a home and moving. So consider all your options about making your life at your home easier before making a life in a different home. Boy, I can't believe we are coming to the end of another segment. I hope you found some of the information today helpful. If you have any questions that have not been answered by our podcast, you are welcome, as always, to contact Vehicle Accessibility Consultants or myself directly at djohn, John, at vacaccessibility.com. You can also find this information on the podcast webpage at vacaccessibility.com. There is an email link there as well. Remember, there's never any charge for a private customer to call us with a question. So that's it for this segment of On the Road to Mobility. I'd like to thank Mateen again for joining us. It was really a great pleasure hearing her story. Don't forget to check out the other segments in the podcast section of our webpage at www.vacaccessibility.com. And one more thing. If there are any subjects you would like to see addressed in a future edition of this podcast, drop us a line via email. We'll do our best to get it covered. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope we can catch up again real soon. Have a great day.
We hope you enjoyed this segment of On the Road to Mobility with your host, Dave John.
Well, that just about wraps up the first On the Road to Mobility podcast. I hope you found some helpful information there. And I want to thank again Jill Evans for being with us today. Jill's story has always been amazing to me, and I'm glad I could share it with you in this segment. Now, so let's take a quick look at some of the info coming up in future segments. Transportation for elderly family members, mobility funding options, parents with disabled children, low-income mobility solutions, finding and purchasing an accessible home, and mobility travel are just some of the upcoming subjects you can find on this podcast. As I mentioned earlier, if there's any information you need that you did not get in this segment, or if you would like to talk about your individual mobility challenges or needs, you are perfectly welcome to contact me directly at Vehicle Accessibility Consultants. My email is djohn, John, at vacaccessibility.com. This info is also on the webpage for the podcast, and an email link is provided. As always, there never is any charge to talk with us. So that's it for this segment of our podcast. Again, I hope you found it helpful. And don't forget to check out the other segments in the podcast section of our webpage at www.vacaccessibility.com. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope we can catch up again real soon. Have a great day.
We hope you enjoyed this segment of On the Road to Mobility with your host, Dave John.